Gareth, after doing this show with you for many a year, I know when it's your house background I see, and I know when you are once again abroad. Where are you, sir, and what are you doing?
I'm in the Far East. I'm in Thailand, waiting for the weather to get a bit warmer in the UK. There's no talk sport on Saturday night, so I've extended my stay in the sun. Spent New Year with friends out here and just trying to get fit and healthy for what is going to be a very, very, very busy 2026. I'm genuinely now, Ade, I cannot remember a January in my boxing lifetime that was so busy with so many big and eventful fights that push forward towards the next 12 months. How about you? Are you back in domicile?
I am back. I'm back. I've feel like I've traveled the world. I think I've done 6 or 7 countries in 6 weeks, which is quite astonishing. And all of those countries, minus one, a lot hotter than this country. So there's a part of me that wish I stayed in Nigeria or Dubai or a bit of Saudi. But no, we're back. It's good to be back as well. As you say, we've got a massive January coming up. Just fights all over the place. World title fights, big implications for pound rankings. Winner stays on, loser kind of finds another route fight. So there's quite a lot going on all over the world as well, which shows how global this sport is. Germany, obviously, Agit Kabayel. Dalton Smith doing his thing in the Barclays. Fingers crossed for Dalton. Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson, next door, MSG. Josh Kelly, right, fighting for a world title up in the Northeast. So loads going on, loads, which is good. And it's interesting that you say that about January because there was a time when boxing did used to pause. It used to have a little gap and a breather. It's now a 12-month-a-year sport.
Yeah, I remember when David Hay had a comeback fight on January the 16th, probably about a decade ago, if my memory serves me right. And we all were all saying, do you think it'll do any numbers at the O2 Arena? Do you think people will come to it? It was either against Mark Damori or someone for Jajai, the Cobra Jajai. Yes. And it was one of his 2 comeback fights before... Who did he fight? Well, he was chasing a fight with AJ, actually, but obviously he ended up fighting Tony Bellew in those 2 big fights.
Was that on Dave TV?
Dave TV, yeah, something like that.
It was,
Dave
wasn't
TV.
it? Yeah.
But David had become very popular because of Celebrity Get Me Out of Here. And I remember after that going to his training camp in the gym. Did you ever go to his gym under the arches in Vauxhall?
I did, yeah.
I remember turning up, and I think there were 1,000 people lined up all the way along the street and all the way along for his autographs. And he might have had a book coming out. Elliot Wursell's book on him had just come out. Unbelievable popularity. In fact, I spoke to David today on FaceTime, actually. He's in Nicosia with the beautiful Sean, enjoying rays himself. So if you've got a couple of days in between now and what you're doing at the weekend, get yourself back into the sun, my son, because that's where you need to be. Just very quickly, because it's not really in the running order today. I'm glad you mentioned Agit Kabayel against Mr. Damien. I can't pronounce his surname, and I don't want to say it wrong. Polish fighter, 29, heavyweight, 17. I think he's undefeated in 17. I think 11 of them are knockouts. I think Agit gets the homecoming, gets a win at the weekend for me. I mean, obviously, he beat Frank Sanchez. He beat Arslan Makhmudov, who are undefeated, stopped them both, beat up Zhili Zhang. He's still 3 or 4 in the world. And I think when we have our chat about what's coming up this year, I think he needs to feature in it because he's a little bit of a forgotten man. I think he gets the job done in 7 or 8 on Saturday night in Germany. And you mentioned Dalton Smith. I've got to say this, and I'm going to put my neck on the block. I know he's the underdog with the bookmakers, Eddie, but even though Sobriel Matias de Puerto Rico is 23 wins, no losses, 22 knockouts, and he fights like a zombie, I just think his style is made for the very best Dalton Smith. And I think Smith can win the WBC 140-pound title on Saturday night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn by a very close points decision. Discuss, please, sir.
Yeah, no, look, I want to go back to your first one first, then we'll get on to Dalton Smith, Agit Kabayel, who is almost, you're right, in the heavyweight division, kind of a boogeyman, but almost a forgotten man as well. He's never in sort of given the sexy fights like, Agit Kabiel versus Usyk or Agit Kabiel versus Joshua. He always misses out on these type of fights. But I think it's so good to see a big fight in Germany again. When I grew up, it was either Vegas or Germany. It wasn't much going on over here. It was like all the big ones, whether it be the Klitschko's, whether it be Felix Sturms, Van Otka, Arthur Abraham, Marco Huck, everything was Germany.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened for years. And it's good to see a big Germany fight. David Adelaide's now been added to the card. I hear it's sold out, the event. So obviously German fight fans are desperate for fights to go on and happen there. So hopefully this can be almost a kickstart and a resurgence for big. I mean, you must have gone to Germany so many times for fights, Gareth.
I think I did 2 Vladimir Klitschko fights in New York, where that famously Burt Randolph Sugar, one of my mentors, the late great boxing historian, sat next to me and started snoozing on my shoulder. And in about round 5 of, I can't remember who the opponent was for Vlad Klitschko. It was at the Garden. And he said, "Hey, wake me up when the fight breaks out," and he was literally sleeping on my shoulder, and they were booing Klitschko. And he had 2 fights in the early 2000s in New York. Booed because they're a very generous crowd when you fight well, and they're very, very aggressive towards you when you don't. The New Yorkers like their action, and they know their boxing. And then I think I went on a run all the way to 2015 with Vlad, which must have been 12, 13, 14 fights, going to his training camp in a place called Stangelvert up in the mountains, spending hours and hours and hours with Manny Stewart and Jonathan Banks, his assistant. Doing Manny Stewart's, I did his hand wrapping course, which was brilliant on Park Lane one weekend. It was a great time with Klitschko. And I always remember Manny screaming at Vlad Klitschko, "Throw your right hand!" Because all he used to do was jab. As soon as he threw his right hand, he'd knock the opponent out. And obviously culminating in those fights with the likes of David Haye. And then eventually in 2015 when Tyson Fury dethroned him, if you like, of 3 of the belts. It was a great time in lots of ways. And I always remember it was like going to the opera with the German crowd, a ripple of applause like Lord's Cricket Ground, and gentle opera music for guys to come in the VIP areas. It was a great time, Eddie, as well. It was a great time. And the Sauerlands, Mick Hennessy was involved. It was a fun time. It really was.
Let's hope, again, that this can be the kickstart of some good German fights, because it's certainly wanted and needed in that part of the world. And as for Dalton Smith, it's a fight that I initially, and I still have reservations about because of Subriel Matias testing positive for performance-enhancing drug. Yes, it was deemed lower than the threshold, but still I have my concerns. But it's a tough fight for Dalton Smith, and it should be. World title should be tough. And I see similarities with Kell Brook, 2 Sheffield boys, Kell having to go away and beat Sean Porter in America, Dalton having to go away and beat Subriel Matias, and look what it did for Kell's career. So hopefully, we don't have many world champions over here, so hopefully Dalton can bring it back, and then it kickstarts the Adam Azim train of maybe them 2 eventually fighting for a world title. So hopefully he can do it, but it's a tough ask against a tough, gritty Puerto Rican in what is basically Puerto Rican country in the Barclays. So good luck to Dalton Smith. All right, let's get to our wishes for 2026. Before we do that, by the way, our producer Jez here has fantastically put down some of our wish list for 2025. And one that we both said we wish to happen did happen. Crawford versus Canelo.
Yeah, and how brilliant it was, and how well it was orchestrated and put together, and whatever it was, 40 million views on Netflix. An amazing show. It was wonderful to be in Las Vegas for it. And then fascinating, I think I was on my way back from working Crypto Fight Night in the Far East and derailed into Saudi for the first press conference there with Canelo and Crawford.
Yeah,
Crawford pulling me up on my attire as I swashbuckled my way off the flight and looked a bit bedraggled. He pulled me up and he said, "What's the matter with you today? You normally dress so fly." For me, it was the beginning of Crawford having fun with everyone. And I think we didn't just see his brilliance this year. We saw his personality. We saw how powerful he is as a legacy agent, choosing the right time to retire unless he's tempted back. producing a masterpiece that has allowed him into the all-time debate with Sugar Ray Leonard and Floyd Mayweather, and it was a super fight, and it was horribly one-sided in the end, and it signaled the end for Canelo, in my view. I know he's going to fight again, but I don't really know where he goes. I'd rather him throw it all in and fight a warrior like a Benavidez and just throw his hands at someone, because the finessed Canelo is over, in my view. But Crawford, we've seen his personality, we've seen his stridency, we've seen him make points about sanctioning money and belts, very well made, even though he was an advocate of belts at one point. I mean, you must have enjoyed it as well. It was fantastic to see his performance.
It was just, it was incredible. And I think the biggest takeaway from Crawford is probably, as you say, outside the ring. Like, finally, we've seen the personality that everyone's always said is there, but he's never really been comfortable enough to kind of let it loose in front of the cameras. And I thought we saw a personality come out last year. He's traveled the world. I mean, every time you put on your TV, Crawford's in another country doing something. So he's almost enjoying the riches of what his career has given him, finally. So we are seeing a different Terence Crawford. And I'm happy he's retired as well. I mean, do I believe he's retired? I'm not quite sure with boxers nowadays. I'm happy that he's called it quits, unbeaten. And then we can have that discussion as to where he ranks as one of the all-time greats. And I know there's people up and down barbershops having that discussion right now.
It's remiss of me not to mention his amazing charity work in Africa as well, by the way, which is astounding.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
That deserves great praise.
Lot.
Yeah.
He certainly does a lot. Another wish that we said we wanted to see in 2025 was Eubank Ben happen. And lo and behold, it happened twice. The second one, clearly not as good as the first one. Maybe they should have kept it just as the first one, right? And let that be the last in memory. The second one really didn't have the same feel or energy or edge to it. But the first one, looking back at that, was just sensational TV. It was WrestleMania rolled up in Super Bowl all in one.
Yeah, it was an amazing event. The first was arguably the fight of the year. The second was the flop of the year, I think, in many ways. But obviously 40 million invested, that circa 40 million that we expect or reportedly was invested in that. The two men emerging from 2025 with extraordinary riches. Conor Benn growing by the end of it, and putting himself in the mix for mega fights with Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tank Davis, and all these guys that resonate in that kind of grouping. Shaka Stevenson, Tio Lopez. But I just feel that Chris Eubank might have come to the end. I doubt whether he wants to go out like that, but he was not himself in that second fight, or he certainly wasn't the guy he was in the first fight. Like you, thoroughly enjoyed the broadcast on the first one. Fascinating fight. Amazing turn up by the fathers in the end. But I think it was very tired by the second event in that sense. But props to Conor Benn. He did his thing in the second fight, and you can't take any of that away from him. As I say, he's put himself in the mix. It delivered. It was an amazing third fight between the two families.
Yeah, it certainly did deliver. And Conor Benn has come out of that with, even in the loss in the first fight, I thought he came out of it very well. Obviously, took his trip to New York, and I think maybe didn't realize how much it had crossed over to America. I think American fight fans love that type of fight. Got tired of what they were seeing in America in the so-called super fights, and all of a sudden, Chris Eubank and Conor just decided to have a fight. And I think fight fans like seeing fighters fight. And you're right, he's put himself in a position for, I think the obvious one is a Ryan Garcia fight. I think there's a good chance that happens in 2026. Another prediction, or at least a hope that we had, was that we would see Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua in 2025. Obviously didn't happen. Tyson Fury in the last couple of days has announced that he will come back. I will never, ever believe a Tyson Fury retirement for the rest of my life. I will never believe him when he says he's retired. But Tyson Fury is back. We were all systems go for the AJ fight in September. That's what we were hearing. That's what rumors were circulating. With what's happened with AJ in the last few days, I do wonder now what happens. I almost feel like boxing's right on the back burner of this discussion, but this is a boxing forum, right? So we can have it. I just wonder if we will ever see that fight now. I feel like it might have just been, for whatever reasons now, I feel like this fight might have been missed.
Well, it's peculiar, isn't it? We thought we were going to get a 2025 when neither men fought. Obviously, Anthony's coming off a loss to Daniel Dubois in September 2024. And suddenly, out of the blue, on 5 weeks' notice or 5.5 weeks' notice, he's fighting Jake Paul in Miami. I can't believe we could never have predicted that at the beginning of 2025.
Ever.
But as we go into 2026, we might be mad not to say, well, maybe we might see Tyson Fury and Jake Paul. And it sounds crazy to say it, or Conor McGregor and Jake Paul, or Francis Ngannou and Jake Paul, because the kid doesn't seem to be buckled by it. I know he's suspended at the moment because of the broken jaw. I think the authorities have made that obvious. Jake, you ain't coming back yet with these 4 plates in your mouth, closing your jaw together. Close your jaw, keep your mouth shut, and just get on with your influencer YouTube stuff for a while. They should have fought each other, Fury and Joshua, in 2025, to my mind, Ade. And I know you agree with me on that, and so does everyone in the boxing world. But for some reason, they didn't acquiesce to it. I think it was more down to Fury than Joshua, but Joshua was recovering from that catastrophic loss in many ways to Daniel Dubois, even though, and I maintain this, Anthony Joshua will fight till he cannot get up anymore. And that is the man he is. That's why I cannot wait to see him fight Tyson Fury. I'm going to say, when the emotional dust eventually settles, and I can't cast any aspersions because I am not in the place where Anthony is, where he has lost 2 very close friends, people he works with, people he loved clearly, people he wanted around him, in one of those horrific incidents in life that puts life into perspective, not just your boxing career. And that's what we're talking about here. He will get a life perspective from this. He may be motivated by it. He may never fight again. He may feel that it was a sign of something. I don't know. I just wish him well. And I wish the families condolences, because it's a terrible thing to happen to anyone. We're all members of families, and we all have things happen to us and our families at time. And it's always a difficult time. So, and I know it's a boxing forum, but he will make a decision on probably what he wants to do in the coming months. But like you say, it may have an effect on whether this fight ever happens or not. If it doesn't now, we all understand probably why.
Indeed. Great. Well said. Time is a great healer. And I think AJ just needs time, a lot of time, and then we'll see what happens. Sometime after the spring, going into the summer, I think a decision will be made then. Very quickly, as we wrap up sort of the heavyweight landscape, Alexander Usyk, in terms of predictions for him, it looks like, I mean, you've spoken to him, but all he says is Deontay Wilder. He literally mentions no other name apart from Deontay Wilder. So I guess the prediction for Usyk, who's now said he wants to continue until he's 41, which I don't really like, but it is what it is Deontay Wilder, and then who? Does he go down the Wardley route? Do we maybe see Moses quickly make a run and potentially put himself in a position to now fight Usyk, because Usyk's going to stay on for a little bit longer?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether we spoke after I was in Dubai at the IBA, International Boxing Association conference, where I had Deontay Wilder on stage with me and Manny Pacquiao and Sonny Edwards. Did we speak after that or not?
No, I don't think we did. I think we shared a couple of messages, but not a conversation.
Right. Well, I had some great chats with Deontay and his people out there. And he told me very excitedly when the fight with Usyk was mentioned, he said, I was pacing up and down with my phone to my ear like an excited kid at Christmas. Wow. He said, I could not believe it. I had to contain myself. And then he was doing interviews and he was trying to, by the end of the week, and he was brilliant on stage with me and Manny Pacquiao about the DNA of a champion. And Sonny Edwards had an amazing session with them in front of the IBA Congress. They were all brilliant speakers on these things. He really wants the Usyk fight. This is genuinely his last hurrah. We've already spoken about why Alexander Usyk wants it. Down the line, he'll have fought all the big names from the era. But if he does stay, and I see Usyk as a big favourite, nice to see him with a bit of hair at the WBC conference the other day.
Is he had a hair transplant?
No, he just grown his hair back. He looks human with hair, doesn't he? He looks like a machine without it.
And he looks massive. I mean, massive in height. He looks like he's grown an inch or so.
He's grown into heavy. 5.5 years of heavyweight now, you know. So he's not having to boil down at all. He's naturally a 220-pound man. I think, Ade, you mentioned there very rightly and cogently, it's Jermaine. If he goes on to 41, it's no doubt whatsoever that he is going to be presaged into facing Fabio Wardley, Moses Itauma, and Ajit Kabayel. He cannot avoid those three guys. Yeah, Lawrence Okoli's in the wings. There's a few others in the wings. But those three, if he stays around again for another 15 months, he's got to fight two people. If he fights Deontay in April, May, they're talking about, maybe he doesn't fight for another year. If he doesn't fight for another year, early into 2027, it's going to be Moses Itauma, Ajit Kabayel, or Fabio Wardley with a belt or two. So he's going to have to face one or two, or maybe all three of those. And if he does, because I think he's capable of beating all of them, we get an amazing end to his career.
Final question as we wrap up this heavyweight section. Is Fabio Wardley still a world champion by the end of 2026?
Well, Lawrence Okoli's chasing him. I'm not sure Fabio Wardley's too keen on that fight, calls it a stinker. So everybody's playing snakes and ladders with each other. Fabio Wardley, Moses Itauma, I love, by the way, as a fight. Moses Itauma's doing a little sneaky turn on Derek Chisora at the moment. Do you see that one as well?
I have, yeah.
Kind of saying, very sneaky, although he's got Jermaine Franklin, February
23rd, 24th?
Yeah.
I should know this. 24th.
Soon anyway. And Dave Allen out soon as well, by the way, February 26th or something, I think, and February 23rd as well. I think that's on the undercard of Josh Warrington and Leewood, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, it's carnage.
Because hands will go. Will Fabio Wardley... Do you know what? Look at the equaliser against David Adelaide. Look at the equaliser in the second Fraser Clark fight. Look at the equaliser in the Justice Hooney fight. Look at the equaliser against Joseph Parker late in the fight. It's very hard to pick against him at the moment. I mean, even though Moses is doing that sneaky turn on Derek Chisora, I think he's one of the most dangerous heavyweights in the UK at the moment, setting himself up for Derek's 50th fight and his next fight after Jermaine Franklin, who I think he goes 7-8 rounds with before he stops him. And if he does the whole 10 or 12, great for him. Then he'll fight Derek Chisora. Fabio's going to fight someone else. Fabio and Ajit Kabayel is a good fight, for example.
Yeah.
Will Fabio be a world champion? Are you asking me, or are you going to answer it first?
I'm asking you. I'm waiting for your answer. I'm asking.
Oh, I love Fab, but I'm going to say no.
Yeah. I mean, there are some big names out there. Dubois, Ajit Kabayel. Ajit Kabayel's the one. If he fights Ajit, I think he loses.
I like Fabio and Dubois as a contest. I really like it.
I think that's a great contest.
It's
and I think
a
that's a fight
cracker.
that I think they're trying to run towards as well.
Can we watch that tomorrow?
Right, there you go.
Can we watch that tomorrow, please?
Which what? Oh, yeah, that there would Stadium. Dubois Wardley.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, agreed. All right, you're listening to Find It Extra on talkSPORT 2. Up next, we're going to look ahead to some more potential super fights this year. That was a chunky. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, the great Gareth Davies. All right, we were talking super fights amongst many other things in the first section, mainly in the heavyweight division. We're going to go down the divisions now and look ahead to some big super fights already been signed and lined up for 2026 and ones that we hope can get done. I guess the one that's already done, Gareth, you mentioned it earlier in the show, Shakur Stevenson going up to 140 pounds to take on, I think, the best 140 pounder in Teofimo Lopez. That one, the back end of January the 31st, MSG. That's a super fight to kick off 2026.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's the fight that germinates a major movement in America that helps TKO boxing, that helps Turkey Al Sheikh, that helps the Ring Magazine and Riyadh Season, because since we had Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis, that was a massive success. When was that now? 2.5 years ago, something like that. This is the biggest fight for a long time, barring Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. Obviously, it's a non-existent fight now because it's been annulled. That epoch, the epoch of the current epoch of 135 to 147 in America is the dominant kind of bandwidth of boxing right now, isn't it? So this is the opening. This opens the portals to 7 or 8 fights. And it lets Conor Benn in as well, by the way, from the British side, and maybe brings those guys to the UK as well. My big thing, my narrative on this one, the A side in the narrative is Shakur Stevenson. But the A side in the spoiler, the joker in the pack, the man who can create mayhem is Teo Lopez. This fight has everything. It has the villain, it has the good guy, it has the skills, it has the bull, it has the matador. They can intertwine the smaller man coming up against the bigger man. Is he really capable, Shakur, of rising to the top of the pound for pound list? I have something about Shakur. I love Teo. I think he's one of the great characters of the modern era. I've always had something about Shakur. The minute I sat with him, the minute I began to interview him, maybe 5.5 years ago under the Top Rank banner, I just thought he was special. I felt his inner confidence that comes from a man who knows how gifted he is, who knows how hard he is, and he never, ever fails to impress me. I thought he had a very good year certainly the fight he had against William Zepeda. I thought he was astounding in that because he made a very dangerous fighter look ordinary by the end of that fight. Can he do it to Teo? I don't know. He could lose to Teo, but I think if he looks good against Teo, comes through a battering and is able to dominate Teo by the end of it, I think we have a very, very special, rising, prominent star on our hands, Ade. That's how big I think it is.
Yeah, I agree. I think this fight is massive for those reasons that you just touched on there. If he comes through this fight, Shakur, then, I mean, we always see him in those pictures with Floyd and Andre Ward and Terence Crawford. If he comes through this, then he's on his way to becoming that special, right?
Pernell Whitaker, all those guys. Pernell Whitaker, all those guys. Yeah.
All of them. But this is a slippery slope because Teo's that guy who is the spoiler. He is the joker. We saw that against Loma. We saw that against Josh Taylor. But this guy, when he wants to turns up, always in shape, physically a specimen.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this. And if this doesn't, there's been this narrative about boxing being dead in America, which I don't necessarily believe, but it isn't what it used to be. I think we know that. But if this doesn't sell out MSG, then there is a problem. Because this should be the fight that does it. This is the one, right, where everyone should want to be there, surely.
It'll do numbers online. It will do numbers. It's on DAZN as well, isn't it? I mean, presumably. It will do numbers.
Yeah.
There's no question it will do numbers. And also, Teo is the hombre de Honduras he's got that machismo. Him and his father are like gunpowder when they go off. I was around him a lot. Did a lot of work with him around the Josh Taylor fight. I did broadcasts from a gym in Liverpool we did a special show. He ignites on fight week. He loves the build-up. He'll get stuck into Shakur like no one's ever got stuck into him before. if anyone can upset Shaka and his hype train, no, it's not a hype train. His brilliance train. If anyone can shatter the illusions that may exist around Shaka's frailty in terms of power, because that's the one thing that he may
Yep.
lack. Because he's got accuracy, he's got ability to win rounds. Floyd used to win rounds, by the way, with 4 punches sometimes. You just knew you had to give the round to Floyd, and Shaka has that. But against Tio's a very smart operator, but he's also an animal and a street fighter. So if you're not excited by this flaming fight, you'd never be excited at all by a boxing match.
Yeah, if this doesn't get the juices flowing, then that's your fault. Maybe you should start watching another sport. Another superstar that we're hoping to see in an enormous fight in 2026, and I was there for his last fight, is Inoue. Obviously, I was there for the fight in Saudi against Alan David Picasso. He wanted the stoppage, didn't get the stoppage, but I still thought it was a really good performance. And the big thing, the big sell was him versus Junto Nakatani, who fought on that card as well. Didn't look great, Nakatani. And I wonder now if that is the super fight that we want to see, Inoue versus Nakatani. I know the Japanese want to see it because it's a big Japanese showdown. I just wonder, does it still have the same lust for it in world boxing, Inoue versus Nakatani? Or does Bam Rodriguez need to step in the middle somewhere?
Yeah, I think you're on the money. I think my feeling, I watched it all live, and you did a brilliant job out there, by the way, December the 27th. And I know that it's always hard working through Christmas at an event.
Difficult.
You know, it was so love and respect to you for doing that. I'm going to answer you. Then I want to ask you a question about being around those guys, because I haven't. I felt like I missed out by not being around them physically, because you can always tell more. But my reading of it was this. Nakatani disappointed me, even though I'm on the Ring Magazine rankings committee. Okay, now Nakatani's in our top 10 pound for pound. I don't necessarily agree with that, even though he's got a fantastic resume. He may have reached his upper limit in terms of super bantam now. I thought he was very smart at the end of the fight against a very durable, very tough Sebastian Hernandez, who is a very great fighter, but quite limited. He's a come-forward merchant who has got an amazing chin, incredible cardio, and will fight you all day long. And I thought Nakatani had to shift and move a little bit, get on his bike towards the end. I didn't think there was any problem at all with the scores. That 7-5 at least, anyway. And I've argued the toss with people over that. I had no issue with that. But I was slightly disappointed. I wasn't, when I watched Naoya Inoue, even though he tired slightly by the end as well, his brilliance on the inside, his footwork, his timing, his ability to work with the openings everywhere, just to find bang, the boom, the movement, the tenacity to stand right in front of Picasso and then to move out of the way. I thought he was brilliant. And what I did was I made Naoya Inoue, even though I'd originally, Fabio Wardley was my British Fighter of the Year. I'd originally made Terence Crawford my Fighter of the Year. But once I knew Inoue had done that, Ade, in that fashion, and had won 4 times in the year, I made him my number 1 of the year. Nakatani, yes, against Inoue next year, but Nick Ball, then Bam Rodriguez, please. If you could do those 3 fights for me in 2026, Naoya, I'd love that. Tell me what it was like being around them.
They are very, very different in the sense that I've obviously been around so many different fighters from all over the world. Their entourage is so quiet. It's so respectful and peaceful, and it was actually very different. I'm so used to entourages being loud and even corner men being loud. Even their corner guys are so quiet. They don't scream and shout. It's very unusual. And Inoue obviously is walking past, and I'm seeing him just stroll past me, and there's no airs and graces. He's just. It's almost like that isn't the pound for pound number 2, that isn't one of the greatest fighters of all time. He just walks around like he's a journeyman. And I found it fascinating to see. And I don't know. Obviously, look, everyone, handles themselves differently in terms of the number of people around them. But I do think a lot of our fighters, British fighters, American fighters, can take a lot from sort of fighters from that region of the world, and the way in which they just are, manners and just respect. I found it humility. Because again, Inoue is one of the greatest fighters of all time. And you just see him walking around, and I'm not kidding you, he's walking around like he's got a record of 17-17. And I just found it just incredible to see. So being around him was good. Physically, he's quite short, but he's jacked. Like his legs and his neck and his arms. I mean, this guy, and he looks like a killer in the ring. He's got that kind of blonde hair, that bleached blonde hair, and he looks very scary. But then when you interview him, it's almost like he just comes back down to being that nice, quiet guy again. So he can switch just like that. But yeah, it was fascinating being around not just him, but all the other Japanese fighters as well. It was almost Japanese against the world on that card. And obviously some took I think two had defeats, and I think obviously Inoue and Nakatani got the victories. But going back to your Inoue eclipsing Crawford as the fighter of the year, couldn't agree more with you. I'm 100% in agreement. 4 fights a year is insane. And even he said after in the ring, like, I'm just tired now. And that's probably why he didn't really have the energy for the last couple of rounds. He's not fighting scrubs. He's fighting good names. Picasso was unbeaten. MJ Akhmadaliev is a good name. Only lost just the once. He had that fight against Cardenas in New York. Where
Good
he got
fight.
Put down, got
fight,
up. And
one of the fights of the year.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm with you. I can't give... Although what Crawford did was incredible, I can't give it to you for having one fight. I can't. 4 fights versus 1 fight. I'm going to go with the guy who had 4.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to where you describe being around Naoya Inoue and Junto Nakatani, and it doesn't surprise me because when he stops fighting, he's got the cult of the father with him, of course, an incredible respect that he has for his father, much like Vasyl Lomachenko and his father Anatoly, that they've been brought up in the milieu of respect and martial arts. But also, doesn't surprise me when he's with his childhood's love. He's a lover of Disneyland, and his favorite movie is Aladdin, the cartoon Aladdin. And I think he becomes the monster, but I think it's his alter ego, and I think he's a very gentle human being.
Isn't that similar to Bam? Quite similar with Bam, right? Bam's like that as well.
Yeah. So what do you think? Super fight with Nakatani, featherweight fight with Nick Ball. I think Ball loses it, but I think it's a great contest, and he's a great foil. And I'm not being disrespectful to Nick, but obviously Naoya is coming up a 5th weight division to fight Nick, and then Bam Rodriguez. If you had those 3 fights next year, wow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, the 2 of them, the first 2, 100% can happen. Junto, same weight, and Inoue, I think, can go up 1 more weight. Haven't seen him and Nick Ball. I'd actually say he's probably bigger than Nick Ball.
Taller.
Nick Ball's, yeah, he's definitely taller. Yeah, I think everyone's taller. And look, I asked him the question in the ring about Bam. I said, look, would you entertain a Bam fight? And he said, look, if Bam comes up. So it's all about Bam. And then I think Robert Garcia retweeted something about, we'll see you soon. So I think that's the super fight, even in Robert Garcia's mind, that they're looking at for the next 12 to 18 months for Bam. So that would be a sensational 12 months for Inoue. And if he does do that, then it's fight of the year for me again in 2026. Yeah. But we'll see. He never lets us down. So we'll see. Does Conor Benn fight Ryan Garcia? Yay or nay?
I think if Ryan Garcia beats Mario Barrios, definitely. Obviously, Ryan's got to make 147 for that, hasn't he, for a start, because it's at welterweight. So that's fine. We've discussed whether he should be fighting for the WBC title right now. We've already discussed that. It's not a meritocracy in this case, unfortunately. And should Conor Benn be fighting Ryan Garcia if Garcia beats Barrios? It's a 50-50 fight, that. But yes, 100%. And if they do it in a stadium in America, or they do it in Vegas, or they do it in a stadium in the UK, that fight sells from the minute it is announced.
Does over here? I think it does a stadium. Does Conor Benn have that pool in America? You think? Where
Oh, he will do because he's got
does
that.
something big?
He's got the something about him, hasn't he? He's a very cool character, even though we had it out a little bit the last time I saw him. And he's got that zing coming off him all the time, that electricity. And I think when he was on TV in America, when he was on the Helwani show with Shaka Stevenson, people really enjoyed him. It wouldn't take much for America to warm to him.
You know, it'd be embarrassing for Ryan Garcia that Conor starts speaking Spanish and Ryan can't speak Spanish. I think that will be Conor's in to get the Mexican crowd on his side. He will start speaking Spanish and then he will say to Ryan, you can't even speak Spanish. And he will go right for him. So if I'm Ryan right now, I'm learning Spanish immediately because I've got to say something in Spanish because Conor will do the interview in Spanish. Conor will speak as much as he can. And that will be something interesting to happen.
Indeed. Maybe Ryan's comeback is I've got the most Twitter followers and Instagram followers of any active boxer. I think he has anyway.
Yeah, I think he probably does have at the moment. A couple of final ones in terms of wishes. Virgil Ortiz versus Boots Ennis. We saw them get in the ring and do their face-to-face. It's gone quiet since then. I have a feeling it isn't going to happen next. I think it's going to happen, but now all of a sudden I feel like they're going to go different routes for 2026 early.
Well, I know we're running out of time this week, and there's some amazing. I mean, it's really getting me stoked for the year. Not before time, this one, because these guys need to meet. They're both undefeated. They're both brilliant fighters. I favour Ortiz slightly because of his style, but Boots, he's a dark horse as well, and I think he fights better against better opposition. And again, it just pushes towards an amazing year in America. And if we include Alexander Usyk and Deontay Wilder, if that happens in America, look how America's building up right now for the year. Boxing ain't dead in America, and there's going to be some massive events for us to attend over there this year.
There will be. One of those will be Benavidez versus Zerdo as well. Let's not forget that one in the cruiserweight division. And if Benavidez stays there, because I do favour him, I think, to beat Zerdo, then do we get Benavidez versus Jar Pataya? Does he come back down to light heavyweight and fight Dimitri Bivol? There are so many things that can happen in 2026, and I think it's going to surpass. I really do think it's going to surpass, and that's going some 2025, but we'll see. All right, you're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Up next, very quickly, we're going to discuss Zuffa Boxing. Can they be the big disruptors in the sport this year? This is a short one, Gareth, but we did start a little late, that's why. So normally we'd be wrapping now, but this is a short section.
How okay.
Welcome back. You're listening to Fight Night Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, the great Gareth Davies. All right, let's talk Zuffa Boxing, who want to be the big disruptors this year. They want to make waves in America. They want to put on events. The first event they're going to do is January the 23rd. It's going to be on Paramount, which I guess is a good platform for it to be on, especially in America anyway. I don't think that's really registered over here, Paramount. In America, it's massive to be on Paramount. They haven't yet made any massive signings, Gareth. I think everyone thought they were going to go bang, right? And just sign him, sign her. They haven't done it yet. Why do you think that is? Do you think they're trying to take a different route into the sport of boxing and it's going to be a slow build? Or are they just going to get the guys that are coming out of the Olympics and the World Championships and guys maybe with a record of 15-3 as opposed to the superstars?
Well, I think Dana White's thing has always been let's create great matchups that deliver in terms of how good the fights are. And you look at the UFC cards, and as you know, I mean, I don't work fervently on UFC at the moment, on MMA in UFC, because I'm involved with other things. But I was involved for a long time. And Dana's thing was always, and I knew Dana, I've known Dana a long time and I know him quite well. And his thing has always been create good matchups and you get great cards that deliver all the way down to the bottom of the card. So you get people coming in early to watch good fights. Now, obviously, boxing's algorithm doesn't always suit that. And most people like a top-heavy event. Certainly, that's how it runs at the moment. But like you say, if they're considering themselves to be disruptors, they'll try different things. I think it'll be a slow burn for them. They don't need to overturn the sport overnight. They don't need to revolutionize it overnight. They've got Turki Al-Sheikh and Dana White, who are two of the most powerful figures in the world in sport let alone in the combat sports world, who have, let's just say, almost bottomless pockets in terms of who they can add to their cards at a month's notice if they really want to. So it's surprising that they haven't announced two big headliners, but obviously Zuffa Boxing oversaw Crawford and Canelo, which they didn't do too badly at, and they did a great job of it, I thought, in terms of delivering. The event was run like a UFC event runs its media platforms and all those kind of things. It did big numbers. I thought it resonated in 360. The card is announced, isn't it? But there's no big names on it, so they're looking at saying, look what we did. We put 12 fighters on this card. We had 6 amazing fights. That's what we're going to do. And then by event 2, 3, 4, 5, they'll start slotting in the big names as they become available. They'll start working with the other promoters. They'll start working with Spencer Brown and Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn. And they will, because they don't exclusively have to be over there, because I think they will cooperate with the rest of the boxing world. They are just flexing a bicep right now. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I do, and I agree with you. I do think it's more the UFC model of not necessarily star versus star, but making a great fight and a great matchup, and ultimately you're going to tune in because, oh, that guy and that guy put on an incredible show last time out. Let's tune in, as opposed to let's tune in for the star name, which I think makes sense, because that means they can then pay those guys less as well, because they're not star names. It's more the matchups. And also, I do think if they want to get big names, I do think it's a lot easier in today's market where fighters don't sign 8-fight deals anymore with broadcasters or promoters. These fighters are a lot smarter. Fighters nowadays are really in control of their careers more than we've ever seen before, where they will literally hop to wherever is the biggest guy is paying them the biggest money. So if Dana White one day decides, okay, I do want a super fight card, I think he'll be able to take talent just like that from anyone.
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. And I think the other thing about them is that they will try different guises. They're not fixed to anything. So, if some and I think they will buy out players as they become available as well. And they've got no competition in America. Turki Al-Sheikh's also got irons in the fire with DAZN. He's got irons in the fire with Riyadh Season. He's got irons in the fire with Ring Magazine. My big thing all the way along was what I did not understand, and maybe Turki Al-Sheikh, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, wanted to keep ring belts for himself rather than allow Dana White to have any control over them. I don't know whether that's true, but for me, that would have been the obvious thing. What we try and do is have the ring belt, not the TKO belt, because at that point, it might get a little bit confusing. Because at the end of the day, there's no sanctioning fees for the Ring Magazine belt. It's judged in rankings by a group of people who've got hundreds of years of boxing experience when you put all their years of experience of the game together. So I'm fascinated to see how they work that one out in the end as well. It's going to be, look, it's another player in the market. I know Eddie Hearn's trying to play his game with Dana White quite a lot as well. But they're both amazing characters in the sport. And it's going to be good to see their tussle and the Oscar De La Hoya tussle as well.
I love the clapback Thursdays. Honestly, I literally, I'm glued to Instagram. Like, come on, Oscar, come on. I'm refreshing. I think he's been incredible in the last couple of years, Oscar De La Hoya. I really do. Final one before we wrap up.
And a final one, Ed. A final one, Eddie.
Well, let me have the final one, then you can have the final one.
Oh, go on then.
Final one, Netflix. How big a year in boxing will they have?
All right. My prediction is that Fury and Joshua may well end up on Netflix. How about that?
Oof. What a blow that would be for DAZN if that were to happen. Jeez. That would be such a big blow. All their big fights have been on DAZN, then the biggest of all time goes to Netflix. But you're right. I mean, Netflix want the big ones, don't they? They want the ones that move the needle, and that one moves the needle. Do you think they're going to have an active year, Netflix, or just one and done or two and done? Do you think it's going to be active year?
Nikisa Badarian told me that they were planning a lot more at the end of the AJ Jake Paul fight. Nothing announced yet, but they will be doing more events in 2026. But when you look at what Netflix have done with 4 events in 13 months, Ade, I cannot see them not being involved in 2026. I came away with many words echoing and ringing in my ears from everywhere around AJ that Netflix and all their executives in America absolutely adored him. And he was such, I've got to say this, all my dealings with him out there during the Jake Paul event, he is one classy guy. I tell you that. He is a classy guy. And he came across that way in America. And I did a few interviews with him that did millions and millions and millions of numbers on Instagram and Reels. And the comments on there, I think it did 131,000 likes. And the comments on there, people fell in love with AJ when he was in America. He conquered it after losing it in 2019. And I just get the feeling if Turki Al-Sheikh is going to invest in Fury and Joshua, and this isn't to the detriment or chagrin of Eddie Hearn or DAZN or anyone else involved in that, or Frank Warren, that might be the biggest platform for that big fight. That's all. And I think if I'm thinking about it, other people are going to be thinking about it as well.
All right, what was your final one?
Well, it was to go on to Netflix in 2026 because I thought...
Oh, there you go. See, we've worked with each other for so long, I just telepathically knew exactly where you were going to go. That's why I went there. I knew exactly where you're going to go. I do think Netflix are going to have a big year as well. And we'll see how it plays out. We'll see. I think competition's good. Growing up watching, HBO and Showtime go heads to heads and over here, Sky Sports and TNT and DAZN, I think it's good. I don't think one broadcaster should have the ruling of the kingdom. I think that competition's good, and I think Netflix is a good competition for DAZN.
Yeah.
So it will make DAZN pull up their pants and start working.
Indeed, and
maybe move out. Maybe Jez remove out the pull up the pants moment if you can, please delete that, Jez.
Well, with all
I think gone.
Yeah, well, I think with all Ade, with all the streaming and that's available now, being the biggest app, being able to do advertising on your streaming and making go-to live programming is the future. And it's been proven that sports fans will sit through adverts. And the major luxury brands are now coming to sport like never before as well. So all of those things pivot to... It's great for DAZN. It's going to be a great year for DAZN. It's going to be a great year for the combat sports world. And, I look forward to another whole year of us maybe creating a little bit of magic on our shows every week.
Indeed. Well said, sir. All right. You've been listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Big thank you to Gareth for joining me today. Again, as I said at the start of the show, Happy New Year. And fingers crossed, all our dreams come true when it comes to boxing in 2026. Remember, if you've missed any of this show, you can listen to it as a podcast. Find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. We'll be back with you next week.